started with my favorite players to target in the early, middle, and late portions of each round. So depending on which pick you actually have, first, sixth, or 12th, you'll be satisfied with a player, a pick that I absolutely adore. Let's begin with the first round. My favorite value in the first round, the player that could break fantasy in 2024, Bijan Robinson being selected as the third running back and the fifth overall player on average. Now, if you have first pick, Christian McCaffrey, second or third, CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill, fine picks, but I would consider Bijan as high as number 2 overall and even number 1. I really would. Given the Christian McCaffrey age and the little injury in training camp, it's definitely open for discussion, but to me, getting him as RB3 is beautiful because I love Bijan. I love everything about Bijan Robinson this year. He's a young year 2 running back who was an elite prospect. He's in a awesome offense that's going to utilize him as the workhorse option, as a pass catcher, as a rusher, in an LA Rams style offense that saw Todd Gurley as an offensive player of the year once upon a time. The offensive line, I think, is made to run block, setting up Kirk Cousins with great play action opportunities. Bijan is a stud. He's just getting started, and I think this Falcons team is in a weak division. He should have plenty of opportunity to score touchdowns. I just really like Bijan this year. I think he has offensive player of the year potential. So getting him at 5th overall is absolute money. My second option in the first round, my second target, based on the value, is getting Garrett Wilson late in the first round as wide receiver 7 and the 11th overall player. I love Garrett Wilson this year. I'd even consider Garrett Wilson as high as like 6th or 7th overall. I feel like he is in the conversation for me with Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would put him above A.J. Brown in PPR settings. I'd definitely pick him above Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, any of those running back names. I think Garrett Wilson is going to be an absolute dog for Aaron Rodgers in 2024. He's going to get heavily targeted, seeing a ton of volume. Think back to the last couple of years. This guy has seen some of the most targets that we've ever seen through 2 seasons. In fact, he has seen the most targets of a receiver through 2 seasons with one of the least accurate quarterbacks in football. Garrett Wilson is a great route runner. He's also very good after the catch, and he has great body control to make catches like those back shoulders that Aaron Rodgers loves in the red area. I expect him to score 10 plus touchdowns. I expect him to flirt with 100 plus catches and 1,200-ish type yards. He's going to have a massive season. I think he is a bona fide first round pick. Do not pass him up if you have the 10th, 11th, 12th overall selection. I would consider him as high as like 7 or 8. So Garrett Wilson is a stud. That's my late round option in the first round that I'll definitely queue up. Moving to round 2, we got Puka Nacua and Kyren Williams. I bring them together here because they're both Los Angeles Rams. I love the Rams offense this year. I think they're the most slept on elite offense in all of football and fantasy football. Puka Nacua, to me, is a great option in the early second because to me, he's a first round pick. I would consider Puka as high as like 10th or 11th overall. Puka is currently the 13th overall pick and the wide receiver 8, going as the wide receiver right after Garrett Wilson. But honestly, I'd pick him at 11 or 12 in my fantasy drafts, especially being in PPR leagues with a lot of receivers to start. I would definitely look at Puka Nacua here. I think that he is probably the most underrated elite player at his position. He's an absolute machine physically. He's great after the catch. He makes a ton of difficult catches. And I'm not worried about Cooper Kupp taking a lot of work from him. This is a very funneled offense in terms of who gets the ball. It's going to be Puka. It's going to be Kupp. It's going to be Kyren Williams. These guys are going to get the ball a ton. They're going to play a ton. And if there's wear and tear on any of them, I would suggest that it's the older receiver in Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua, I expect to have 100 plus catches this year. I think he's going to have another fabulous season. He was an amazing rookie, and I expect the same in his sophomore campaign. I think he is probably just a very, very good start to your draft, as good as it gets if you're picking at about 11 or 12. So definitely pick Puka Nacua. And I also see Kyren Williams as a very underrated running back in drafts right now. He's currently going as RB7, 16th overall, and in some places he's going even deeper than that or lower than that. And again, love the Rams offense. Kyren is the workhorse of the offense. I've suggested with Bijan Robinson, this coaching staff, this regime, this style of offense loves to feature a workhorse back. And Kyren is that player. I'm not concerned about Blake Corum. Kyren can catch it. Kyren can run it. Kyren's physical. He's just does it all, man. I actually think his receiving skill set is very underrated. And I look at him like on the same tier, if not better than Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley. I would heavily consider, because of the offense he's in, I'd consider him over those guys. So the fact that those guys are going in the first round and Kyren's going in like the mid-second, I think he's a great pick in the second round, especially if you pick like a receiver to start in the first round. You can pair him up with Kyren. I still think you can work a hero RB strategy from that second round. Then we move to the third round. I've got Nico Collins to start the round. I think he's a second round pick in my opinion, and you can get him in the third. He's wide receiver 13, 25th overall. Nico Collins is an absolute monster. He's one of the biggest, fastest receivers in football, and he's the number one guy, the number one X receiver for CJ Stroud, who could lead the NFL in passing yards. That's all that really has to be said. He's in his prime. He had a massive season last year, and I just don't think people realize how good Nico Collins is. Like, he was like top 3 or 4 in yards per route run last year. He is an absolute beast, and he wins you weeks because of the explosive nature of his game. Pick him, especially if he falls to the third. Jalen Waddle has a lot of interesting upside to his game. So he goes as wide receiver 18, 5 receiver spots after Nico Collins. He's the best wide receiver 2, in my opinion, in real life and in fantasy. 34th overall. Now, Jalen Waddle, he is going to be a target machine. He's going to catch the ball a ton. And he's a great route runner. He's excellent after the catch. And also, when you talk about Jalen Waddle, you have to speak about, like, what if Tyreek Hill goes down? What if Tyreek Hill gets hurt or he's banged up for a couple weeks? Jalen Waddle all of a sudden becomes like an absolute alpha in that offense. It's really, you think about it, I mean, Odell is their wide receiver 3, Jonnu Smith. These guys are not going to be catching the ball a ton. They're not factored in a ton. It's Tyreek, it's Jalen Waddle. So just like the Rams, it's Kupp, it's Nacua. Then it's everybody else. So to me, I love the offense. I love the scheme. I love the offensive coordinator. And then I love the contingent upside of what if Tyreek gets hurt. So I love that in round 3. I think he's a round 2 pick as well. And then to finish off that third round, he goes kind of 4th round, 3rd round. Some places he'll go even deeper than this, but Josh Jacobs, RB12, 35th overall. I think he's a top 10 running back in fantasy, no matter the different platform, no matter the scoring system. I think that Josh Jacobs is going to finish as an RB top 10 type of guy, because Josh Jacobs, I think he's going to be a workhorse for Green Bay, which people don't really see coming, because Matt LaFleur's never really featured a running back, but he's never really had a running back to feature. Derrick Henry was not a pass catcher, so he came off the field on 3rd down. Aaron Jones was too small to feature in his offense, but he wants a guy that can be a blend of Henry and Jones. That's exactly what Josh Jacobs is. He's been talking about and talking up Josh Jacobs' ability to catch the football. We've obviously seen Jacobs have 300 plus touches in a season before. He is a good pass catcher. He can run routes. He is a nasty player in between the tackles. And I think that they're going to ride Josh Jacobs to a ton of success. I think he's going to get at least 20 touches a game in an excellent Packer offense. That's going to be very valuable. I could see Jacobs going off in Green Bay this year. He's still in his prime. So I really like him, especially in the 4th round, but the late 3rd, there's not a huge difference there, especially if you want to take receivers early and then get Josh Jacobs a little bit later. I think that's a very fair pick. Moving to the 4th round, I've got 3 receiver names for you that I love. Absolutely. So beginning with DK Metcalf, wide receiver 21, 39th overall. I think DK Metcalf's about to have his best season since his second season in the NFL, where he really broke out in a huge way, and I owned him in one of my bigger fantasy leagues and really benefited from that pick. But I've always been a DK fan because of his size, his speed, his freakish athletic profile. And I think the problem with DK has really been he's split a lot of targets and receptions with Tyler Lockett. But on top of that, the pace of the offense has been so slow, so old school. They've run the ball so much, and the defense has been putrid. Now, what changes in Seattle? Well, they have a more modern offense that's going to throw the ball more 11 personnel, less running the ball, more downfield attack, which all suits DK Metcalf to have more fantasy production. He's a great downfield receiver. He is, in my opinion, from a pure X wide receiver standpoint, top 10 in the NFL, pure outside receiver. Then you look at the defense. It should improve under Mike McDonald. So all those things come together for him. I think he's an excellent wide receiver too, because in any given week, he can score multiple touchdowns and break a game out for you. And then DJ Moore, oh my goodness, what a value in the 4th round. I love DJ Moore, wide receiver 22, 41st overall. DJ Moore had a massive season last year. He's been a consistent 1,000-yard threat, no matter the quarterback, no matter the offense. So his floor is pretty high as well. Keenan Allen looks fat. Rome Odunze is a rookie. Caleb Williams is going to throw it, and he's going to throw it a lot to DJ Moore, who I still think at minimum is going to catch about 90 passes. But I think he's going to go for a lot of yards this year. Like yards per attempt is going to be pretty high for him, yards per reception. And again, man, like this offense is going to feature him. He's going to move around. He's going to get the ball in screen scenarios. He's going to be a downfield threat. He's a middle of the field threat. Just the layers of his attack, the way that he can attack at all 3 levels. There's just nobody else in this offense quite like that. So DJ Moore is a special player. I think he's being very undervalued. Malik Neighbors is also a special talent. Wide receiver 24, 47 overall. In more casual formats and casual leagues and home leagues, he's going to be of great value because people don't really know him. He's a rookie from LSU, but he was a borderline generational player. Like people were putting him over Marvin Harrison, who's going as like the 9th overall receiver. You can get Malik Neighbors, a similar prospect at wide receiver 24. That's outrageous. And Malik Neighbors is almost more built for PPR type settings because he is a guy that should play from the slot, that should catch some yards after catch scenarios, who's going to be featured a ton in a terrible offense that needs to throw the ball to somebody that's going to be trailing in games a lot. So Malik Neighbors is explosive. I could see an Odell Beckham Jr. type of rookie season from this giant receiver. So pick him as well, especially in the 4th round. I could see where you would fade him maybe on like underdog or best ball if he's going in the 2nd or the 3rd, because that might be a little bit too pricey for a guy in this bad of an offense. But 4th round, I mean, the upside is too immense for him to miss. Moving to the 5th round, we have our first tight end target that I feel brings back great value. That's Dalton Kincaid at tight end 5, 50 overall. Dalton Kincaid to me is like one of the only tight ends in the NFL that might lead his team in catches. There are not many. Maybe Travis Kelce. I don't even think Sam Laporta because he got Amon-Ra, right? I don't think Trey McBride, although it's possible, but I think Marvin Harrison will, right? I don't think Mark Andrews because Zay Flowers, we'll talk about him in a second. Dalton Kincaid is one of 2 or 3 guys that you could really talk me into leading his team in receptions. So especially in PPR formats, I think in round 5, he has a high floor. He's got Josh Allen. He's a 1st round talent. He showed flashes last year, and I think he's going to play a lot more this year. And he's going to be a main option in the offense. So I love Dalton Kincaid, love his hands. He is a buttery smooth type of athlete and catches everything. So Dalton Kincaid is a great option. If you miss out like Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, they just go a little bit too high for your liking. Kincaid gives that type of upside that you love in the 5th round. Then we've got 3 other receivers that I can all be talked into. I mean, every single one of them are fantastic. Zay Flowers at wide receiver 27, 56th overall. T. Higgins, wide receiver 28, 57th overall, right back to back. And then George Pickens back to back to back, wide receiver 29, 58 overall. on any given day, I have one over the other. George Pickens, I think, offers the most upside in terms of touchdowns, big play potential, probably half PPR formats. T. Higgins also is a great touchdown option. Zay Flowers, to me, probably ranks a little bit higher in PPR because I think he'll probably catch the most passes, although George Pickens is kind of sneaky in that regard. But I like all three of these guys. I think if you can land any of these three guys on your team, you're looking pretty, because Zay Flowers, to me, I think he has another area of his game that has yet to be really noticed by the public. That is his downfield area of his route running. That's something at Boston College he was special at and didn't really showcase it as much in year one. He was a great screen option, a great yak option, but I think he completes his game as Lamar's #1 receiver this year. I'm also a little bit lower on Mark Andrews. T. Higgins, I think in a contract year, is not a bad option, especially considering in years past, he's gone as a round 3 receiver, round 2 receiver. So people expected big, huge career seasons in years past, but now they're fading him a little bit because of the past couple of years, right? But really, I look at T. Higgins and I say, man, that's a value this year. So pick him up in a contract year where he's ready to prove himself. George Pickens, I just love because Russell Wilson is going to feed him the ball. He's clearly the best receiver. There's no one else on his team that's anywhere close to his physical ability or his true receiving upside. He is great after the catch. He's also got amazing hands, and he's the perfect type of receiver with Russell Wilson who just throws the ball up into double coverage. He doesn't even care. And Pickens is an amazing jump ball player. So I'm way higher on Pickens than a lot of other people. Round 6, Rashee Rice, who's only going in round 6 because people think he's going to be suspended. It's not going to happen. Wide receiver 30, 64 overall is a complete value. He could catch 90 to 100 passes. He could lead the Chiefs in receiving yards this year. I wouldn't be shocked if he surpassed Kelsey as Mahomes' #1 option. He also found a great niche role with Mahomes as the underneath threat on a lot of drag routes and yak type of plays. And he was phenomenal down the stretch for this team. He was like a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy over the past 6 games in fantasy football. And then you look at what he did in the playoffs. He was a phenomenal player for them. James Conner, if you need a running back at RB 19, 61st overall. James Conner, when he's on the field, last year, he was a RB1 option. He scores a ton of touchdowns. He's good in the run and the pass game. And this Cardinals rushing attack is very underrated. The offensive line can move and open up holes. They were one of the most efficient running games in football at the back end of the season last year. Kyler Murray adds a dimension to that. They're going to score a lot of points with Kyler, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride. Connor's going to be very involved as a workhorse for this team. Love him as my RB2 if I can get him. And Kyler Murray at QB8, 66th overall. This is my favorite value in all of fantasy drafts at the quarterback position, which is why I include him here. Kyler Murray's got QB1 type upside with the receiving options he has this year, the best in a while that he's ever had, maybe he's ever had, period. He's got a pretty good offensive line, a defense that's terrible. He's going to have to score a lot of points. He's going to have to throw for a lot of yards. He's going to have to scramble a lot. He's going to have to come from behind a lot of garbage time yards, a lot of garbage time points. Kyler Murray is going to be an absolute fantasy asset for any team that picks him. Round 7, we've got 2 running backs that I like as sneaky options. Tony Pollard as RB26 and Najee Harris as RB23. Love both of these guys. I think Najee is being slept on because Najee Harris in Arthur Smith's offense, I've discussed this before, but he loves big running backs. Tyler Algier, Derrick Henry, right? Think to the running backs that this guy has used and this guy has tried to feature in his offenses. Arthur Smith likes big backs, and Najee Harris has also proven that he's a capable pass catcher. Jaylen Warren is also injured entering the season. I could see Najee Harris rushing for well over 1,000 yards and catching more passes than he did last year because Arthur Smith loves to feature running backs in the screen game and in the passing game, and they don't have a lot of great receivers other than George Pickens, so they're going to have to throw it to somebody. So Najee Harris is very sneaky as a back-end RB2. Tony Pollard has looked fantastic in training camp, fantastic in the preseason. He's been getting way more snaps and way more touches than Spears, so I feel he's a great value in round 7 plus. Now, I think people are going to be kind of scared of him because of how he disappointed last year, but he still ended up as an RB1 last year. He was just taken a little bit too high, but he saw a ton of volume in Dallas. He just wasn't as efficient. But this year, he looks like he's more explosive. He looks like a year recovering from that Achilles, like playing with it, he just looks like a better player. And I'm buying into Tony Pollard pre-injury. He was an amazing player. So round 7, you're getting those 2 running backs at a discount. Round 8, Christian Watson at wide receiver 39, 87 overall. He has the highest upside of all the Packers wide receivers, period. He's a freak of nature, 6'4", 6'5", 4.28 speed. He's an absolute speed demon. He can stretch the field. He's deadly on those crossing routes. He has the most touchdowns in his draft class, which includes Drake London and Garrett Wilson. His actual fantasy points per game is pretty high throughout his entire career. In his rookie season, he was a top 10 yards per route run type of guy. He is healthy. He will be big time. Like, at least he'll be explosive for your fantasy team. If he's healthy, he's going to be a great option to win you weeks with the amount of touchdowns and big plays he can really manufacture. Then you've got JSN, 2 breakout receivers here, Watson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba of Seattle. Wide receiver 41, 90 overall. He's going to be the slot receiver for Seattle. I love his movements in short areas. I think he's a crisp route runner horizontally. He stops on a dime very, very well. He's pretty good after the catch. He doesn't have great speed, but he has very good hands, and he's just elusive, a great playmaker. Just has this thing to him where he's a football player. He understands spacing. He understands how to get open. He understands how to set up a route. He is well beyond his years in route running technique, and I think he's going to become Geno's chain mover in this offense. I think Tyler Lockett takes a step back. I think DK is heavily featured as a downfield target, but I think JSN very easily could lead this team in receptions, not yards or touchdowns. I think that will be DK, but reception-wise, JSN, and I'm buying in big time to the Seattle offense, as you guys know. So round 8, those 2 breakout receivers are great options. Round 9, I've got 3 options at 3 different positions. Caleb Williams at quarterback 13, 103rd overall. He goes way deeper in some formats, but this is on average. So Caleb Williams can run. He's going to score a lot of rushing touchdowns. He's very elusive in that area of his game. He breaks a ton of sacks, breaks a ton of tackles, and the guy is going to be trusted with the offense with these receivers that he has. He's going to be able to go out there and throw the ball as a rookie. So don't be shocked if he finishes as a QB1, given his rushing profile, given the amount of big plays he's going to make outside of structure. Caleb's going to be a lot of fun. Brian Thomas Jr., another rookie here, wide receiver 48, 108th overall, huge downfield option coming out of LSU, right? Led college football in touchdowns last year in receiving. Trevor Lawrence loves throwing the ball down the field. Brian Thomas is a match made in heaven. I wouldn't be shocked if he was their number 1 receiver this year. He looks fantastic. Brian Thomas is a great high upside option, sort of similar to Christian Watson. Chase Brown, running back 35, 107th overall, is my running back high upside option. Chase Brown is maybe going to be the Bengals starting running back, and that's all I really have to say. It's worth a shot in round 9. He has a great receiving profile, and he also was a every down player in college as a senior. So I do believe he's showcased the ability to play as a 3-down running back. He's showcased the ability to be explosive as a receiver. He has the most experience in this offense among him and Zach Moss. So I like Chase Brown here. I think that in round 9, he's worth the upside. Round 10, Jamison Williams, another high upside wide receiver 49, 110 overall. Jamison Williams, once upon a time, was looked at as arguably the best receiver in his draft class for his quickness, his speed, his route running, his ability to get the top off that defense. And he is explosive. And if he becomes the 3rd target in the Lions offense, I feel like he'll be a hit at this price because this is a very good offense. And if he can, get some splash plays, a couple each and every week, he's definitely going to have some weeks where he can win you fantasy football games and matchups. So I think that he's having his best camp. He looks the healthiest he's ever looked. It feels like he's ready to rock in Detroit, and they have a lot of confidence in him. They didn't bring in any real competition. So Jamison Williams, wide receiver 49 in round 10 is a good value at this point. Trevor Lawrence, QB 16, 116th overall. Trevor Lawrence, if you miss out on a higher end option, Trevor Lawrence is a great option because I think he's going to throw the ball quite a bit in Doug Peterson's offenses that always are top 10 in passing attempts. His offensive line is a bit suspect, but his receiving core is not. It's very capable. Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis. We talked about it. Travis Etienne out of the backfield. And Lawrence looks the best he's ever looked entering a season. 2022, he was a top 10 player in real life at the position, in my opinion. He was having a good start to 2023. He got injured. 2024 could be kind of like 2022 part 2, but he might be better as a mental processor of the position. So I could see him like being top 5 or 6 in passing yards, top 5 or 6 in passing touchdowns. I actually think Jacksonville will make the playoffs this year. So I like him in round 10. Khalil Shakir might be the wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen, and that's worth a risk. Wide receiver 50, 117 overall. When you look at the efficiency stats like yards per target, things like that, Shakir showed up big time. He led the NFL in yards per target last year. He's really good after the catch. He's a shifty slot option. Think Cole Beasley with Josh Allen early in his career. I could see Shakir fulfilling that role of a high-end reception monster that converts a lot of these receptions into first downs. I love Dalton Kincaid, but I think Shakir will be the best, most consistent wide receiver for Allen in 2024. In round 11, Matthew Stafford is still being slept on. Quarterback 20, 132nd overall. If you miss on all the quarterbacks, just land yourself Matthew Stafford. If you're going to wait at quarterback, and maybe you want to go with one high upside option, one kind of good floor option, Matthew Stafford is a great option in round 11, runs a great offense with an excellent play caller. His offensive line is improved. Cooper Kupp looks healthier. Stafford could have a 30 touchdown pass season and no one would be shocked. Round 12, we're going back to my boy Rico Dowdle at running back 43, 133 overall. He could be the starter, the lead back for the Dallas Cowboys. I just heard that Dalvin Cook might work out for the Cowboys. That doesn't worry me. Dalvin Cook was a worry part of the whole, Breece Hall thing last year, and that didn't really work out for Dalvin Cook truthers. So for me, Rico Dowdle is explosive. He's by far more explosive than Zeke. He can catch the football. He's really good at making people miss in short, confined spaces. I think he will be the RB1 for the Cowboys, will lead the team in rushing, will lead the running backs in receiving. Zeke will get some work in between the tackles in short yardage, but I think Rico will be the guy, so it's definitely worth a risk in the Cowboys offense in round 12. J.K. Dobbins, I think, could be the starter in L.A., right? Daniel Jeremiah, who's heavily connected to the Chargers, said this way back in June that if J.K. Dobbins is healthy, he'll be the starter. When you think to Greg Roman, he wanted J.K. Dobbins to be the starter above Gus Edwards, right? The Ravens kind of had J.K. Dobbins above Gus Edwards in the past, and it's only not worked out because of injury, but J.K. has been very good when he's healthy. He appears to be healthy now. He appears to be in good spirits, and I'm willing to take that risk in kind of an ambiguous situation in a run-heavy offense with Justin Herbert at quarterback. I think Dobbins could be a really nice asset in the end of your drafts. Josh Palmer, also on the Chargers, wide receiver 56, 136th overall. Josh Palmer, I think, will lead the Chargers in targets, lead the Chargers in receptions, lead the Chargers in receiving yards. He was on a 1,000-yard track last year before he got injured, even with Keenan Allen there. So Josh Palmer is a lot better at football than people think. Round 13, Adonai Mitchell, out of Texas, now an Indianapolis Colt. Wide receiver 62, 149th overall. It's just worth the talent here. Worth the risk, worth the talent, worth the upside. Looked really good in the preseason, has looked really good in joint practices. He's filling in for Josh Downs right now as the slot player. He probably will be the wide receiver 3 or the second perimeter option when Josh Downs gets back. So he'll stay on the field in most formations. He is a good downfield threat, but he's also a talented route runner at all 3 levels. And he just has rare talent. Like, this guy had first round talent. It's just a matter of he slipped because of other concerns. Tyler Conklin, tight end 18, 154th overall. If you miss on all the tight ends and you just need a high floor option to start your NFL fantasy season, go with Tyler Conklin. He's tight end 18. He's almost going undrafted, and he'll probably be the number 2 receiver with the Jets to start the season. Right? It's going to be Garrett Wilson, and then there's not a lot else. Like, Mike Williams is kind of still banged up. He's coming back from injury. Conklin's going to be the reliable option over the middle of the field. He's been pretty decent in all PPR leagues the last couple of years, and I think he could be just as solid this season because there's not a lot of competition. Plus, Mike Williams, even when he comes back, he's likely to get hurt again. So, I mean, Conklin's a very solid option, especially if you miss on tight end and you're like, I need someone to just fill this spot early for me in the year. He's a good option later in drafts. Round 14, both Patriot receivers, Jalen Polk and Demario Douglas, wide receiver 65, wide receiver 66, 159th overall, 162nd overall. Jalen Polk has looked pretty good in the preseason. He's been getting reviews as possibly the #1 receiver for the Patriots because he can play outside and inside. He's versatile. He's got very good hands. He's a smart player. Drake May seems to have rapport with him, and Drake May might start. Demario Douglas, to me, is the most electric Patriot receiver, though. He's a year 2 receiver. Polk's a rookie. So both of them have upside. Both of them could break out. It's just a matter of taking your pick there. I would lean towards Polk, but then Douglas if Polk already goes in your drafts. Douglas is going to be the slot player for the Patriots, more manufactured touches, but I feel like Polk will be on the field a little bit more and have more opportunity. So there it is, guys. My every round target for fantasy drafts, my favorite picks in every single round of fantasy drafts this season. If you enjoyed, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It's Mitch of OwnersBox Fantasy. We'll see you in the next one.